In the 1980s, there were a lot of attempts to get a Spider-Man movie made over at Canon Films. Tobe Hooper, John Brancato, Ted Newsom, and Joseph Zito would all try and fail. But now in the late 80s and early 90s, Canon founder Menahem Golan finally thought he had his Spider-Man movie in the bag. So, what if it happened? After Joseph Zito ultimately decided to leave Canon Films and their planned Spider-Man movie in 1987, Canon would press on without him. There were now 3 years left on their deal with Marvel, before the rights to Spider-Man would expire in 1990. Canon would aim to go even lower budget than their previous versions, and they would spend the next 2 years hiring every screenwriter under the sun to write their own iteration of the movie. They were even accepting scripts from people that they never officially hired. Albert Pyun was who Canon ultimately decided to hire as director. Pyun was already contracted by Canon at this point to direct the Jean-Claude Van Damme movie Cyborg. Pyun was instructed to make the film as low budget as possible, and script rewrites became so constant by this point that it borders on being comedic. I'm talking dozens upon dozens of rewrites, each one trying to bring the budget down by cutting down the amount of action scenes and trying to pad out the running time by giving Spider-Man a canine sidekick named Wiener. However, Pyun's take on the film was ultimately never realized, as Canon ended up being bought out by Pathé Entertainment in 1989. Now by this point, Menahem Golan and Yoram Globus, the men who ran Canon Films, still technically owned the film rights to Spider-Man despite the buyout. The longtime filmmaking pair decided to part ways, with Globus taking a new job at Pathé Entertainment, while Golan got a new job as the CEO of 21st Century Film Corporation. Golan would take the rights to Spider-Man with him to 21st Century Films, and approach Marvel about extending his rights to the character. His wish ended up being granted, and he now had an additional couple of years added on to his contract, giving him until at least 1992 to get his movie made. Now somehow, Golan actually thought he could get the movie in theaters by September of the same year, despite not even having a crew for the movie yet. However, with Golan not having enough money to make a Spider-Man movie at this point, he tried to raise it by selling the home video rights to TriStar Columbia and the TV rights to Viacom. However, his plan didn't work, as TriStar Columbia didn't like his script. Faced with no other choice, Golan decided to hire yet another screenwriter in the form of Frank LaLoggia, director of Fear No Evil and The Lady in White. However, LaLoggia didn't stick with the project for very long, because Golan was still trying to use the canine sidekick idea. LaLoggia understandably decided to quit due to absolutely hating that idea. However, unexpectedly, Columbia changed their mind about Spider-Man and offered to take the entire project off of Golan's hands. Ultimately, Golan accepted their offer. However, Golan decided to still shop the project around to other movie studios, despite the deal with Columbia. This would ultimately lead Golan to Carolco Pictures. They made Golan a better deal that would allow 21st Century Films to receive a chunk of the profits, and Golan himself would be given $1 million, as well as a producer credit. Their version would have had a much larger budget of $50 million, and they already had a certain famous director in mind for the project. So what do I think of Golan's attempts to make a Spider-Man movie? Not great in my opinion, not really. I mean, Golan, he didn't know who Spider-Man was, okay? Like, when he heard of Spider-Man, all he knew was that he was popular with children, and yet he still envisioned him as a horror movie character. Like, he had never even seen a picture of him before. He was by no means a big fan of comics. I mean, he tried to hire Tobe Hooper to do a monster movie Spider-Man, and, like, yeah, I already talked about how I thought that was a little bit silly, and then he spent years, just trying to cut corners on his Spider-Man movies. And now he doesn't even have his big company behind him. Now he has an even smaller company, which means a smaller budget. So if he was involved in a Spider-Man movie at all, like in anything but name only, then I think it would be bad. Just honestly, like I think at least the budget would be terrible, but he had bad ideas. I'm sorry. Like he kept trying to throw in comic relief sidekicks, and as I said, they kept trying to throw in like an animal sidekick for Spider-Man named Wiener. Like he brought that from canon all the way over to 21st century films. Like he would not give up on the idea, and I don't understand why. It's such a bad idea, in my opinion. It really, really is. Spider-Man's not a character I think that works with at all, because like I know that there are, superheroed animals. I know that. I know about Crypto the Space Dog. I'm well aware of that. But Spider-Man, I don't think it would work with as well. And why a dog? You know what I mean? Like, he's not even a dog-themed superhero. But, then again, neither is Superman. But you get what I mean. It doesn't sound right to me. It just doesn't. And all due respect, like, Golan, I have to give him props. He didn't give up. He kept trying with this project. He clearly saw potential in it. Because, like, most people, I think, when they would go from one studio to another, would just give up on a project. And he didn't really understand how special Spider-Man was, but he kept trying anyway. So I gotta give him credit for that he kept trying even though he didn't really understand what made Spider-Man so special to people. But at the same time, I mean, his heart may have been in the right place, but his ideas just suck. I'm sorry. At least in my opinion, they suck. And, I've said budgets don't matter, but in this case, I think they would. I think that the budget would actually ruin the movie, because I think he wouldn't be able to hire very good actors, and I think he wouldn't be able to use very good locations. So I do think it would actually be a case where the budget would ruin the experience, honestly. Like, they could hire great actors even, I still think it would probably be terrible, just because of the budget alone. But then there's the fact that Golan, as I said, doesn't understand what makes Spider-Man special to people. And yeah, I don't feel like he was the right guy, and I'm, no offense, kind of glad he didn't do it. Like, rest in peace, but, like, I'm really glad he didn't do it. Like, because I've done videos on all these Spider-Man movies that he was involved in, and he just made so many bad decisions. Asking for great parts of other scripts to get cut out, or scripts to be scrapped entirely, even if they sound great, just because he wanted to make it as cheaply as possible. And if you have that kind of mindset when it comes to a superhero movie, I don't think you're the right person for it. I honestly don't. It's proven to be true, because Steel with Shaquille O'Neal was made as cheaply as possible, and it was one of the worst superhero movies of all time. And that's not to say that movies with a lot of money can't suck. I mean, Catwoman with Halle Berry had a pretty good budget, but it was still as bad as it was. So, I mean, money by no means guarantees a success, but, like, I don't think that it hurts the chances of it being good either, especially when you have somebody like Golan involved that doesn't understand. You know what I mean? So, as far as I'm concerned, it's probably for the best that none of these versions of the movie got made, whether that was at Canon Films or 21st Century Films. I just don't think that Golan understood the character, and I don't think he had the money to really execute a grand vision for him either. So ultimately, in my opinion, I think it's for the best that it never happened. But let me know in the comments down below what you think of Golan's versions, I should say, of Spider-Man. And if you like this video, please make sure to give it a thumbs up and share it with all of your friends on all your various social media platforms. And speaking of social media, don't forget to follow me on Instagram, Rinzler_Productions, and I'll see all of you tomorrow in the next video.